What is up, everybody? This is going to be my first video of a new series on the channel labeled GigaTakes. I will be your host of this, Sal Rose, and in this episode, I will be bringing y'all 6 mock trades that myself and John Harris think can shake up the league. Little disclaimer before this started. John, our lovely commish, was supposed to join me on this. We filmed this entire thing yesterday. Unfortunately, the audio file through OBS for the Discord just completely did not work. So throughout that entire film, you couldn't hear anything he said. So that kind of sucks. But huge shout out to John for pretty much making all these trades for me. And huge shout out to John and Kyle again for helping me make the little graphics you will see here in a second. Now, before we get into the actual video, I do just kind of want to explain what GigaTakes will be about. In this, I guess, series, you could call it, we're kind of just going to be talking about, like, random stuff throughout the league that we might have a take on. It won't be as in-depth into stuff, kind of like Giga Up or Giga Nerds that Bishop has his own thing with. This will kind of just be me and whoever wants to join me in these videos just rambling about random stuff. So for our first video, we felt like mock trades was a good start just because as the season gets a little bit more in-depth, the trades will start flowing. And yeah, that's pretty much it. With that being said, let's take y'all right to the first trade. All right. As y'all can see right here, we have the first trade involving myself and another D1 team owner in Luca. You can see that we have myself receiving Mike Evans, and I will be sending off Jacoby and a 6th. The main reason that me and John kind of came up with this trade is because I can't really rely on Geno Smith anymore. The first 2 weeks, Jacoby looked great. Geno obviously looked a lot better than he does now. He was getting peppered with targets, double-digit targets. Week 1, he had like 9 receptions for like 88 yards. And then as the season's gone along, Geno's kind of just progressively gotten worse. He has like 9 picks. On the flip side, Evans obviously has been out for a little bit with that hamstring injury. This is a good buy low opportunity. I'm not spending a ridiculous amount to get him. It's a pretty clear upgrade for what I would say is a relatively fair cost. And either me or Luca could also look like this is a very 3-teamable trade as we have in our notes here. Like we could definitely add someone into this just and have them dish off like a running back to either mainly Luca because he needs the help more at the RB slot. So this trade could go a lot of different ways. And it makes sense for Luca, especially if it isn't a 3-team. He is fine at the receiver position, especially with the 1-2 of Jefferson, JSN. Like, it really doesn't get better than that. And the running backs have failed him completely. We don't know. This is, like we've said, this is all mock, so we don't know if Luca's looking to trade. This is just mainly for fun, but also trades that we think definitely could happen. Moving along to our second trade, as you can see, it involves 2 D2 team owners in Mikey Bishop and Curry and Hammy. You can see here that we have Ladd for RJ, Harvey, and a 6th. The reason that we chose Bishop and Ryan for this trade is that Bishop definitely needs some running back depth. Obviously, he has CMC and Josh Jacobs, so it's more just on the depth aspect. I don't know if obviously Harvey wouldn't be a plug and play for Bishop. It would just be like a bench spot. You know, bye weeks come around, he can use him. Anything happens, Dobbins, he can use him. As for Curry, he definitely needs the help. He went and spent his 4th round pick on Harvey this past year. And obviously J.K. Dobbins looked really good, so that's not really panning out how any of us expected it to. So this is just a good move. Ladd has obviously underperformed a little bit this year. He's currently wide receiver 3 on the Chargers in terms of production, which kind of sucks because everyone thought Ladd was going to be a smash hit, including myself. And I would, speaking for everyone, I would say we all thought so. This is, you know, a good move for both sides. Bishop gets some running back depth and an extra pick to go into next year with new divisions. I think that's extremely enticing for pretty much everyone in the league. And Curry isn't giving up a ridiculous amount. You know, I'm sure he's probably already took Harvey on the chin at this rate. In terms of, you know, it was a miss. Dobbins looked better than we all expected. It is what it is. You're going to flunk on some draft picks. It happens. And he could use that. You know, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a buy low candidate because it's not like he's been injured or anything. But I definitely do think Ladd will get a little bit better down the course of the year. So, you know, it's cheaper than Ladd will ever be unless somehow this keeps up. And Curry could use the depth. Obviously, in one of his flex plays, he has a Mecca, which is a smash hit. But he had A.J. Brown as a second-round pick. That, as an Eagles fan, for any of you watching that support the Birds, I'm sure you know how that's gone. And it would it makes sense for both sides. Bishop's team is ridiculously loaded at receiver. He still has Rashee Rice coming back this next week. So he really has no reason to keep Ladd on his squad unless he believes in him, which, from what I'm hearing, it doesn't seem like he's ridiculously high on him anymore, unfortunately. So this is kind of just like a win-win. It's another scenario of one team gets some depth and a pick to go into next year with, and a contender in D2 and Curry's team gets that mixing flex piece that could easily elevate them to a true contender. All right, so before I get into the trade that you see right here, I do just want to point out, last night after we filmed this, Kyle and Jay actually did end up doing a trade. Jay sent over Breece Hall and Breece Hall and a 9th. And Kyle ended up sending away Nick Chubb, a 5th, and a 7th. So, this kind of looks a little stupid right now, and you will see later in the video another trade we made will not make as much sense. This one, the principle still applies here in Kyle getting a flex play, which in this scenario was Deebo Samuel. He desperately needed a running back and a new flex play to plug into his lineup, and he went out and got his RB2. So obviously the need for Deebo is still there. I don't think he's going to give up a 4, nor do I think he trades with Jay again, considering they just traded about 12 hours ago. So I don't think he'll pay this premium of a price for a flex play, but forget that the trade happened. The reason we made this is obviously he really needed a flex. Well, he still does because he sent off Nick Chubb. I don't know why he did that, but we can discuss that further on Giga Up this upcoming week. And on Jay's side, it obviously made sense. He had his price set on Deebo and Breece for a 4th pretty stubbornly. Obviously, he negotiated down for Breece, but he got the extra 7th and Nick Chubb, so it's actually better than just a singular 4th. And I think with this trade, or now with the Breece trade, this kind of buys Kyle a little bit of time before he has to go out and get his flex. Obviously, going from Nick Chubb, who was on bye, Jerome Ford was going to be his starting running back this week because of the lack of depth. So I think him getting Breece is a huge bolster for the squad, and it was a relatively fair price. I think the Nick Chubb addition to the trade confused me a little bit, considering he needed that depth, but it's not my trade, it's not my team. I like the move for Kyle nonetheless. He desperately needed it. So obviously this trade kind of flunked because it doesn't really make that much sense anymore. But if you forget that, this trade would make sense. I'm sure within 3-4 weeks, unless anything hits the fan, I think we'll still see Kyle go out and get a flex play to replace Cooper Kupp in his lineup. So I'll just have to stay tuned for that. Alrighty. As you can see, we have our 4th trade right here. This involves John and Luca. In this, as you can see, we have John sending over a 6th round draft pick and Luca sending to John Trey McBride. Now, obviously, Trey McBride has been a little bit underwhelming to start the year. He's still a premium at the tight end position. I think he's still tight end 2. But he's only been putting up 12-ish points per game. He had a dud this past week. I think he only put up I think it was single digits. And for John, we'll start with his side of it first. Tight end is easily the weakest position on his team. I honestly don't remember who his starting tight end was going into the year. I know he picked up Harold Fannin from the Browns off waivers week 1. He's kind of been riding with him ever since. But outside of week 1, if Fannin isn't getting a touchdown, he's been pretty, he hasn't had a game better than his week 1 performance in terms of usage. But on Luca's side, he went out and got McBride at the 3-3. It's been a little underwhelming. It's the same thing as last year. He hasn't been scoring. The targets are down from last year. And Luca's team, obviously, if you watched Giga Up, that just came out today. Check that out if you haven't on Spotify and YouTube. We mentioned it. Luca's team has been very underwhelming. Just 3 weeks ago, he was the clear favorite in D1. Now there's a chance that he doesn't make the playoffs just because of the state. John's team got bolstered. My team got bolstered in terms of just injuries helping me out. I hate to say it like that, but Tyreek going down really boosted Waddle. And Rossi's team has looked great these past 2 weeks. I would say Rossi's probably now the favorite in D1 to come out on top, especially if he goes out and buys. So I don't think this McBride for a 6 trade would come in the a couple weeks. Like, I think this would be maybe like a move that we could see happen week 9, 10, a week or two out from the deadline if Luka's downwards regression continues. And I think another reason why this could be pretty enticing for Luka is, for those unaware, he sent out a second, I think it was week 2 or 3 for Derrick Henry. If you play fantasy football, you know how underwhelming Henry has been. Luka also has Kamara on his squad, which he spent with his own second at the draft. He's been extremely underwhelming, just got outsnapped by Kendre Miller. So I think making up for that lost capital, especially in the Henry trade, this could be really good for Luka. Same thing with my trade, the first one that y'all saw involving Evans. I think Luka, if his team stays on the same path, is probably just going to try and get as many mid-round-ish picks he can, just to try and get that second back. Obviously, or try and, at least help the damage of not having a second. If he full-on sells, he has a good squad to where he can get good draft capital, but I don't know if he'll want to do that. D1's still pretty weak, and it's not like his team sucks. He just definitely has to address the running backs, and the fact that he went out and spent a second on it just hurts it even more. As for Jon, his team looked good. If he gets McBride, I do think McBride definitely does ramp up a little bit down as we get closer to the year. I don't think McBride is going to score 2 touchdowns again last year, or like he did last year. I think he'll probably finish with more. I think the usage will still go back up. They're having him on a lot of really, really tiny routes. Like, the targets are still pretty good, especially for a tight end. But you're just not seeing those 90 to 100 plus yard games we would see out of Trey relatively consistently last year. So obviously this is one of the biggest maybes. Luka's still first on the D1 leaderboard, but everyone's questioning the sustainability of that. He just lost to myself by 40 points last week. So I think even Luka probably has some doubts and questions about his team, but so this is a big if. I do love the trade for both sides if their teams continue going in the same progression as they are. As for Jon, this would be huge. As for Luka, like I said, 4 times getting that capital would also be massive. All right, as you can see, we have another trade involving Kyle. This one really sucks because I can't even really talk about it because of the Breece Hall trade that just happened. This was Chase Brown for a 9. This was supposed to just be assuming he addressed the flex by this point. Obviously, he took the other route and got the RB2. This was kind of just going to be a buy low RB2 with Kyle. They obviously just traded for Flacco this past week. I think Flacco will definitely open up that offense. I don't think Chase Brown will go back to how he was at the end of last year, but I definitely think you're going to be seeing more than 9 to 10 points a game. The Bengals' offensive line is shaky. Joe Flacco's not mobile. Those two lead to a lot of dump downs. Joe Flacco's also just a better quarterback than Jake Brown. He's going to air it out. I think all of the Bengals' offense sees a slight tick in efficiency. As for Chase, this is season saving. I don't think he's going to be the guy you still went and got at 1-1, 1-2, wherever you picked him. But I definitely think he's not going to be having those 7-point games that we honestly got accustomed to seeing for 3 weeks in a row. He just had a really good game last week. And I think, Flacco will help that. As for Chase Brown. But like I said, I can't really ramble too much about this one anymore. Because he just went and got Breece Hall literally 12 hours ago. So this one kind of sucks to have in the video. I'm sorry. But we can still show it here. Obviously, if you look at it from a different perspective, me and Jon were right on the fact that Kyle was obviously going to go and buy an RB2. Wasn't as much of a buy low, but he definitely got a better RB2. Chase Brown is not holding a candle to Breece Hall at this point in the season, especially with Braylon Allen out for 10 weeks probably. He might need surgery. Breece has looked good. The passing volume's getting ramped up. So this one kind of sucks. It's a little bit of a dud. Bad timing, if you will. But, you saw the idea. All right. And lastly, we have Jamar Chase for a 3rd. Now, this one was Jon's idea. At first, I didn't really understand it at all. But the more he kind of explained it to me, and in the video we filmed yesterday when I was hearing his analysis of it, it did make more sense. For those unaware, Mark is currently the 2 seed and owner of Jamar Chase in D2. And Liam is 0-5, lowest points for in the league. Could potentially go down as one of the worst teams we will ever see. Cost of winning a chip. Rossi, you're a D2 spy if you're watching this. Anyways, so the reason that this trade was brought up is Jamar for a 3. If Joey's team kind of starts going on that downhill slant, especially in a division as competitive as D2, it would definitely make sense for Joey and Mark to sell. And if Flacco brings value to Chase, we could even see this go up to a 2 as a potential keeper. It would be a first-round keeper, but it makes sense, you know? Stay with me now. Hampton just went on IR for Joey and Mark. We don't know. We know that they're shopping around a little bit, or they were. I don't know if they are anymore with the Hampton injury. But I don't know the value. Like, I don't know what their most, like, the highest pick they would give up, if you will. I don't know, like, where they're kind of drawing that line with it. So if they were to go out and sell, I definitely think, we haven't spoken to Liam about this, but it would make sense for Liam to go out and dish out, like, a higher pick to solidify himself a good keeper. As of right now, his keeper is, like, I don't even know who his keeper is. All the players that he got were unfortunately in pretty bad, like, reaches. You know, he went and got Worthy in the 4th. I don't really like that. He had to pick Demont in the 5th just because there's really no one left on the board. The way our league runs, we'll do pick, training, and keeper. So the board gets really dry by, like, round 4 or 5, depending on most instances. But another big reason this makes sense is Liam actually had Brock Bowers. That was his keeper this past year. And he sold him early in the year to Josh for a 3rd. So not only does he have an extra 3rd, like I said, he doesn't have a keeper. So Liam potentially go out and spending that extra 3rd on, you know, like a big name keeper. It would make sense. I mean, we've seen almost every year we've done keepers, we've seen like at least 1 to 2 players get kept in the 1st. If you're getting good value out of it, there's no reason not to. This past year, I kept Jamar Chase. I was the 1-2 overall. I kept Jamar Chase, traded back in the 1st of the 112. So not only did I have the wide receiver over 1 overall, wide receiver 1 overall on my team, I was able to net extra capital from trading back in the 1st because I already had my keeper set. I think this makes complete sense for Liam, whether it's Jamar Chase or not. You know, the point remains. We kind of just thought of Jamar just because of Joey and Mark. We don't know how they're going to approach this Hampton injury. We don't know if they're going to buy. We don't know anything about D2. It's literally just going to be like human cannibalism in there. It's just going to be the Pac-12 where everyone's beating everyone in D2 and then none of them end up like, you know, it's just going to be ridiculous when we get closer to this trade deadline. There's 5 teams that all have a chance. I'm sure you've heard us babble about it on GigaUp. But it should be really interesting to see which 2 D2 teams end up selling. It's kind of inevitable, but which 2 sell, it is a complete mystery right now. So, like I said a couple times, the point stands for Liam. It might not be Jamar. It might not even be a player from Joey's team. But it also saves Liam. You know, if Liam goes and gets Jamar, he's no longer the worst team in the league. He's automatically better than Dan. I don't know if I would put him above Jay, because Jay just definitely has some more depth with Quentin Johnson and Debo on his squad. I don't think Debo stays on a squad for much longer, so take that as you will. But this more than likely saves him from last place. He'll be able to trade back in the 1st next year. And it's just a very interesting scenario for Liam. Like, he'll have a straight draft, but he'll also have Jamar Chase or any other huge name on his squad. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I can say about this one. This was probably the most interesting one I saw. Like I said, when John was explaining to me, I was like, what the hell is he talking about? And then he kept going, and then we shot the video, and I was like, hold on. This works out really well, especially if Mark and Joey start going on that downward slant. But those are all of the trades that I have for y'all today. If you watched it all the way through, thank y'all so much. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out GigaUp on our YouTube, Spotify. Check out our Instagram. We have a link train there where you can check out everything we do, including our Google Drive with all of our fantasy stuff. And outside of that, if you enjoyed the video and you're in the league, or even if you're not in the league, comment what take you would want to see next. If you're in the league and you come up with an idea, Please text me. More than welcome to have guests on in this. Please come join me for a video. We can babble about whatever you want. But with all that being said, thank you all for watching and have a great rest of your day.